Angela Wagner did not appear on camera again at her request and the request of prosecutors. The defense team for George Wagner IV, Angela's son, continued the cross-examination portion Thursday. She broke down in tears at points when talking about the son she is testifying against and her other child, Jake Wagner, who also agreed to a plea deal in exchange for testimony against George IV. "This is not easy for me," an emotional Angela said Thursday. Angela, 52, said she loved both of her sons, and at one point in time she loved Hannah May Rhoden, who was the mother of her granddaughter, Sophia. Custody and control over Jake Wagner's daughter, 2-year-old Sophia, was the motive behind the slayings, prosecutors have said. Her mother, Hannah May Rhoden, 19, was one of the 8 victims Jake Wagner said last week on the stand he shot in the head. Angela testified that she feared Sophia was being sexually abused and the murders were done to protect the then 2-year-old child. Defense attorney Richard Nash asked her why they never called child services, which Angela said she didn't know why. Angela said Wednesday that her entire family, husband Billy Wagner and sons George Wagner IV and Jake Wagner, all participated in the 2016 Pike County massacre. Her son's defense attorney asked her Thursday where was she when the killings happened. Angela said she was at home, asleep, even though she knew what was about to take place. Defense attorney Nash: "How could you fall asleep knowing that?" Angela: "It was a long day, and I had worked all day. I took some prescription ibuprofen." It was after that statement that Nash asked Angela if she knew the details of the killings. Who shot who, what route was taken, who fired the first shot, and where were the weapons hidden? Were questions Angela said she did not have the answers to. Pike County. Highlight from Angela Wagner testimony. On Wednesday, before George Wagner IV's defense team began questioning Angela Wagner, Special Prosecutor Angela Canepa asked her if anyone offered to take responsibility for shooting and killing 8 members of the Rhoden family. "My son George did," Angela Wagner said, but she told him he could not take responsibility because she thought investigators would not believe him. Angela Wagner was asked about how she felt when she saw on the news that her son, Jake Wagner, pleaded guilty. "I felt like my heart was ripped out that day," she said. Defense attorney Nash asked Angela Thursday if the goal of the plea deal is to try to get out and see her grandchildren. She answered yes, and, "I have regret. I am more than sorry, but that's not enough." Nash asked her if the prospect of seeing her grandkids is enough to kill 8 people, jeopardize her mother's freedom, and sit here and testify in a death penalty case against her son. She will be close to 80 years old when she is released. Her eldest son, George Wagner IV, is the first member of the family to be tried in the execution-style killings of 8 members of the Rhoden and Gilley families on April 21–22, 2016. All 4 were charged with 8 counts of aggravated murder and a slew of other charges. George Wagner IV and his father have pleaded not guilty and are fighting the charges. George Wagner IV's younger brother, Jake Wagner, and his mother pleaded guilty last year. Before she finished testifying Thursday, Angela said all of us are guilty of committing aggravated murder against the 8 Rhoden family members. Angela Wagner testifies all of us are guilty of committing aggravated murder against the 8 members of the Rhoden family. Jake Wagner took the stand for 4 days, calmly telling the jury in graphic detail how he personally shot and killed 5 of the victims and shot and wounded a 6th. He implicated his father in the other murders and, while he confirmed his brother never fired a shot, he did say his brother extensively participated in the planning, preparation and cover-up. On Wednesday, Angela Wagner said everyone in the family except her husband, Billy Wagner, wanted to move to Alaska after the slayings. Her husband didn't want to leave because his father was ill. His mother, Fredericka Wagner, had a big crying episode and begged me not to take him to Alaska, Angela Wagner recalled. Both her husband's father and her father would die while the family lived in Alaska from spring 2017 to spring 2017, she said on the stand. "If I would have known my dad was as bad as he was, I wouldn't have left," she told the jury. Life in Alaska didn't turn out to be the quiet reprieve they'd hoped. They were en route there when someone sent them a photo showing state agents conducting a search of their former Peebles home and property. Angela Wagner said Wednesday she worried that something was going to be found that shouldn't be found. She asked her husband, "Is everything going to be okay?" "Don't worry," he told her, "I got all the shell casings." As a group, they concocted an alibi to provide if questioned by law enforcement, Angela Wagner recalled. They agreed they would say they had a family movie night and everyone came over. Then Jake said he couldn't remember which movie he was supposed to say they watched and his brother made fun of him. State agents met them at the Montana border, separated them all, and interviewed them. Angela Wagner told the jury she was an emotional wreck and worried they were going to arrest George and Jake and take their children, her grandchildren, Sophia and Bulvine. "I would cry every time they went out the door," she said, referring to her husband and sons. "They covered the window and doors with sheets and curtains at the house they rented in Alaska. Everything is going to be okay," her husband reassured her, she testified. Still, he warned her, "Whatever you do, don't talk about it in the car." Then, state agents and the Ohio Attorney General's office released a flyer and news release calling the 4 Wagners persons of interest in the massacre. "It was very scary, very nerve-wracking," she testified. The state announced a reward of $10,000 for information leading to them. She said she read on social media people were asking if that was for 4 Wagners dead or alive. Angela Wagner, 52, told the jury Tuesday that her entire family, husband Billy Wagner and sons George Wagner IV and Jake Wagner, all participated in the 2016 Pike County massacre. They did it all to protect their son's 2-year-old daughter, Sophia, from being molested, she claimed. "Nobody's heart was in it," Angela Wagner said on the stand. Custody and control over Jake Wagner's daughter, Sophia, was the motive behind the slayings, prosecutors have said. Her mother, Hannah May Rhoden, 19, was one of the 8 victims Jake Wagner said last week on the stand he shot in the head. The young couple began dating when she was 13 and he was 15. By the time Hannah Rhoden was 15, she was pregnant with their daughter. Angela Wagner said it was she, not Hannah Rhoden's mother Dana Rhoden, who took the teen to the clinic, something that Angela Wagner noted upset Dana Rhoden. She admitted to forging custody papers that would give Jake Wagner custody of Sophia if something happened to the then 2-year-old's mother and custody to Angela Wagner if something happened to her son. Jake Wagner, 28, said on the stand last week he grew jealous when the mother of his child moved on and began to see other men after they broke up. Hanna May Rhoden had a second daughter, Kylie, with one man and was dating him at the time of her murder. Jake Wagner testified he feared Sophia would be molested. Angela Wagner also testified she feared Sophia would be sexually abused. By 2016, Jake Wagner and Hannah May Rhoden were sharing custody of Sophia. The toddler spent 1 week with her father, the next week with her mother, and so on. Angela Wagner said when Sophia would return to their home, her private areas were red and had strong odors. During her week with the Wagners, the redness would subside, Angela Wagner claimed, and then return after Sophia returned to her mother. Angela Wagner said she asked her husband, who had some business deal with Hannah Rhoden's father, Sophia's other grandfather, Chris Rhoden Sr., to monitor the situation at the Rhodens when he went over there. Billy Wagner didn't want to do that at first, she said. Then she said she wanted to turn Chris Rhoden Sr. in for growing marijuana and other illegal activities she thought was going on at the Rhoden property. Chris Rhoden Sr. was the one with the money and the influence over the Rhodens, making all the major decisions. Angela Wagner said she figured her son would have more time in custody of his daughter with the family patriarch out of the picture. But Billy Wagner vetoed that, telling her killing only Chris Rhoden Sr. was not an option, she said. "We have to find some way to protect Sophia from all this," Angela Wagner recalled telling her husband. By January 2016, she said Billy Wagner came up with the plan to kill all the Rhodens. Special Prosecutor Canepa asked Angela Wagner if it was ever considered to just kill Hannah Rhoden, not her entire family, too. "Yes," she responded, but her husband also ruled that out. The Rhodens, she said he told her, would seek vengeance and kill their son Jake Wagner. "Did he persuade you that more than Hannah must be killed?" "Yes," Angela Wagner said. She testified Tuesday she didn't want to know the details of the murder plan. She also remained at home with George Wagner's son, Bulvine, and Jake Wagner's daughter. She did confirm on the stand she bought several items to help her sons and husband carry out the deadly plot. Walmart athletic shoes her sons wore at the crime scenes, a cell phone jammer and a bug detector to check for listening devices. Last week, Jake Wagner calmly explained in graphic detail how he and his family planned and carried out the shooting deaths of the mother of his child and 7 of her relatives. He said he shot Hannah May Rhoden in the head twice as she lay propped up in bed breastfeeding her 4-day-old daughter. She fell off the bed, and he told the jury he picked her up and placed her back on the bed, positioning her so she could continue breastfeeding the newborn baby in case it took a while for the bodies to be discovered. In all, Jake Wagner said on the stand he killed 4 other victims besides Hannah May Rhoden. Her mother, Dana Rhoden, 37. Her brothers, Chris Rhoden Jr., 16, and Clarence Frankie Rhoden, 20, and Frankie Rhoden's fiancée, Hannah Hazel Gilley, 20. And shot a 6th victim, Hannah May Rhoden's father, Christopher Rhoden Sr. Jake Wagner implicated his father, Billy Wagner, in the killings of Chris Rhoden Sr., Rhoden's cousin, Gary Rhoden, and Rhoden's older brother, Kenneth Rhoden. Jake Wagner told the jury his older brother didn't shoot a single person or even fire his gun once. But he said his brother actively participated in planning and covering up slayings. George Wagner IV also was with him and his father the night of the killings and did nothing to stop them, according to his testimony. Angela Wagner testified Wednesday that her son, George IV, told her he would be willing to take the sole responsibility for the murders. He and his father, Billy Wagner, 51, have both pleaded not guilty and are fighting all 22 charges including 8 counts of aggravated murder. The judge has refused to dismiss 8 counts of aggravated murder against George Wagner IV even though the state also confirms he didn't fire a shot. Prosecutors say he can and should be convicted of the aggravated murder charges because he conspired with his family to kill the victims and actively participated in the planning and cover-up. See a spelling or grammar error in our story.